Psychology of the ignored avoidant child. The hidden pain behind their silence. Have you ever noticed a child who seems too quiet? The one who never asks for help, never throws tantrums, and always says, "I'm fine." Adults often describe them as easy, mature for their age, or so independent. But psychology paints a different picture. Behind that calm surface, behind those polite smiles and steady eyes, lives a child who learned very early that needing love was dangerous or pointless. This is the story of the ignored avoidant child, a story that begins not with rebellion, but with silence. Avoidant attachment doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's not something a child chooses. It's something they learn. In early childhood, emotional connection is built through response. When a baby cries and the parent comes, that's how trust begins. The infant learns that their feelings matter, that the world responds when they reach out. But what happens when no one comes? When the cries are ignored, when affection is met with coldness, or when love feels conditional, the child's brain starts to adapt. It learns a painful rule. If I don't need anyone, I can't be hurt. That's the seed of avoidant attachment. It grows quietly, invisibly, shaping how that child will love, trust, and communicate for the rest of their life. You see, ignored avoidant children don't stop wanting love. They stop expecting it. There's a big difference. Deep down, they still ache for affection, approval, and comfort. But experience has taught them that showing those needs leads to disappointment or rejection. So they protect themselves the only way they can, by shutting down. They build walls instead of bridges. When they're scared, they retreat. When they're sad, they smile. When they're hurt, they act like it doesn't matter. This emotional self-sufficiency might look like strength from the outside, but on the inside, it's isolation. It's loneliness disguised as control. The ignored avoidant child often grows up in environments where emotional needs are minimized or mocked. Maybe they had parents who said things like, "Stop crying, you're fine," or "Toughen up." Maybe their caregivers were emotionally unavailable, too busy, too stressed, or too wounded themselves to offer warmth. The child, in turn, learns to make themselves smaller, quieter, less needy. They internalize the belief that emotions are inconvenient, something to hide, not express. Over time, this emotional withdrawal becomes their personality. It becomes who they are. But here's what most people don't realize. Avoidant children are often hyper-aware. They notice every mood shift, every sigh, every pause in a parent's tone, because they learn to survive by reading the room, not by expressing their feelings. Their minds become little emotional detectors, scanning for rejection, anticipating disappointment. They develop incredible sensitivity, but they never show it. It's as if their heart feels everything, but their face feels nothing. They become the quiet observers in the room, watching connection happen for others, unsure how to join in themselves. School is often where the ignored avoidant child's patterns become visible. While other kids might run to teachers for help or share their frustrations openly, the avoidant child stays distant. They prefer to work alone, they rarely ask questions, and they often appear confident even when they're struggling. Praise feels uncomfortable, attention feels threatening. They may even sabotage success, fearing it might draw too much focus to them. Teachers might think they're just shy or independent, but what's really happening is emotional armor, a learned invisibility that keeps them safe. And then comes adolescence, when emotions intensify and connection becomes the currency of self-worth. For the ignored avoidant child, this stage is both fascinating and terrifying. They might crave closeness, but fear it even more. Friendships and relationships feel confusing because intimacy awakens a part of them they've long kept buried, the part that still wants to be held, understood, and seen. They might fall in love but then pull away when things get real. They might appear cold or disinterested when, in truth, they're terrified of needing someone who could leave. Inside every ignored avoidant child is a silent contradiction, the longing to be loved and the fear of being dependent. It's not that they don't want love, it's that they don't trust it. They learn too early that love fades, that comfort disappears, that connection comes with conditions. So they decide, and often unconsciously, that they will love from a distance. They'll give, but not too much. They'll care, but not show it. They'll stay, but always keep an exit door open. This is how many avoidant adults are formed, through the childhood practice of emotional self-protection that later becomes relational self-sabotage. But here's the truth. No child is born avoidant. Avoidance is not their nature. It's their adaptation. It's the strategy their mind builds when warmth is inconsistent and affection feels unsafe. Their emotional walls are not signs of coldness. They're scars. They're the evidence of all the moments they reached out and were met with nothing. And once you understand that, you stop seeing the avoidant child as distant and start seeing them as wounded. You begin to realize that behind every "I'm fine" lies a question they've never said out loud. Would you still care if I wasn't? Healing the ignored avoidant child, even in adulthood, starts with safety, not pressure. You cannot force them to open up. You cannot demand vulnerability from someone who equates it with danger. What they need is consistent presence. They need to see that love doesn't disappear when they pull away, that care doesn't vanish when they go silent. Over time, consistency rewires their belief system. Slowly, they start to test connection, a little more eye contact, a little more honesty, a small confession of fear or sadness. And when that's met with empathy instead of rejection, a new pattern begins to form. Trust. For parents, partners, and even friends of avoidant individuals, patience is everything. You may never get dramatic confessions or emotional breakdowns. Healing in avoidant people happens quietly. It's in the small steps. When they start saying, "I missed you," or when they finally ask for help instead of pretending they're okay. Those are the moments you must recognize, honor, and protect. Because in their world, that tiny act of vulnerability is enormous. It's the emotional equivalent of stepping into the sun after years of living in the shade. And for those who grew up as the ignored avoidant child, this part is for you. The way you protected yourself was brilliant. It kept you safe when no one else did. But you don't have to keep living like you're still in danger. You are allowed to need people now. You are allowed to be comforted, to cry, to say, "I can't do this alone." Your independence is beautiful, but it's not the whole story. Underneath that strength is still a tender, loving soul that deserves to be seen, not for how silent it can be, but for how deeply it feels. Healing doesn't mean breaking down your walls overnight. It means letting light in, one crack at a time. Because the psychology of the ignored avoidant child isn't really about distance, it's about protection. It's about a human being who wanted love so badly that when they couldn't get it safely, they learned to survive without it. But the good news is, the brain can learn again. The heart can trust again. You can teach yourself that connection doesn't always lead to pain, that sometimes it leads to peace. And maybe for the first time, that quiet child inside you can finally whisper, "I don't have to do this alone anymore." If you found this video meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights on attachment, emotional healing, and the silent struggles that shape who we become. And remember, silence in childhood isn't peace. Sometimes it's protection. But healing begins when silence finally meets understanding.